Welcome back to the KDPG Sunday edition. We're talking about the aftermath of Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico and the remarkable efforts of a Pittsburgh college student, a native of Puerto Rico, who saw what was going on and decided she was going to make a big difference. Rosana Guernica is our guest, junior at CMU, majoring in decision sciences, which hopefully we'll get to talk about in a second. Also with us is Robert Mangino from News Radio 1020 KDKA. He's on every afternoon. So you were successful in chartering your first flight. The idea was to bring down medical supplies and then bring back patients who needed medical help that was not going to be happening on Puerto Rico. And when did you realize, okay, one trip, not enough, I'm going to start planning a second one? And then how did you get to where we are now, where you're talking about a fifth?
So the first plane, it was a Learjet 45, 8-passenger plane. I flew down with...
8 passengers?
8 passengers, yep. Yeah. I flew down with a resident from Allegheny Health Network, Alejandro Rodriguez. And we flew down with 1,000 pounds of supplies for the emergency room in Carolina, and we flew back with 6 patients. And on the flight back, we were speaking with one of the patients about his experience on the island. He had a kidney disease, and he had gone to one of the dialysis centers that they had set up after Maria. And he told me that one of the nurses couldn't raise the filtration level to where he needed because it cost too much money, is what she told him. This patient needs dialysis 3 times a week. Was only able to be attended to once, and when he was, they weren't able to help him to the degree that he needed. So it was right there on the return flight we realized we needed to do another trip.
And how did you get in touch with the patients who needed your help the most?
My first point of contact were my friends' parents, many who were physicians. If they didn't have any patients, or if they weren't in Puerto Rico in the moment, they connected me with others on the island who were, and word spread very quickly from there.
And here in Pittsburgh, you were very successful in getting supplies donated and getting people to volunteer. Where did the medical supplies and the relief supplies come from that you delivered?
So a lot of the relief supplies are already in Miami and Florida, so I moved those because it's the easiest ones. But the support from the Pittsburgh community, I mean, I couldn't be more flattered and feel more supported. Brothers Brother Foundation purchased $5,000 worth of medications from Highmark that I brought to the Municipal Hospital of San Juan. I received other donations from the Carnegie Mellon community, from the Pittsburgh community. People would read about what I was doing in the paper and ask for my contact information and then send me an email saying, I have 2,000 pairs of latex gloves, where can I bring them? So it's been a great response from Pittsburgh.
And Global Links worked with you as well, correct?
Absolutely. So Global Links and I partnered together for the last trip. They donated 28,000 pounds of medical supplies and trucked it down to Miami, where the plane was taking off from. Half the supplies were for a cancer center on the island. The other half went to medical clinics in Vieques and the countryside.
So you're getting a lot of attention for what you're doing, rightfully so, but the story as a whole has receded, right? As other things happen, this happens every time there's a disaster. Lots of attention initially, and then people sort of go on with their daily lives and they assume things are being taken care of. And we hear now that most people in Puerto Rico have had the power restored, cell services being restored, the number of people in shelters is coming down. So there's a perception, I think, that, oh, things are being handled in Puerto Rico. Is that the truth?
Far from it.
And what is the most powerful thing you saw, both of you, when you were there that told you this isn't coming along perhaps as well as you may have thought and the rest of the country may think?
It's the conditions of the passengers when we pick them up. We had a passenger whose family has been nice enough to allow me to share this story. Jose Custodio, elderly gentleman. He was in a nursing home in Puerto Rico, sharing a bottle of water a day with 4 other people. Hadn't had food for a week. This was only a couple weeks ago. When he got to Florida and was seen by a physician, his feeding tube was black as tar from not having been cleaned. He had a blood clot they weren't aware of and had suffered from strokes that were not recognized, diagnosed, or treated. So it's by no means getting better, and all I need to do is talk to the people and see them and read their medical records of who we're picking up to know that.
You evacuated that gentleman?
Yes.
How's he doing now?
He's doing great.
He's in Florida?
Yes. So he's in Winter Haven, Florida, with his daughter, with his grandchildren who are taking care of him. He's receiving medical attention by physicians who said we're not going to wait for the health insurance to go through. He needs attention now or he's going to die.
When's the next trip?
I am desperately trying to make a trip for the 10th of December. It all depends on funding.
And what will you take with you?
It's going to be medicine, medical supplies. They need over-the-counter as well as prescription. Things as simple as gauze and latex gloves to as complicated as surgical instruments, medications such as insulin.
Robert, your impressions when you were there, just upon getting off the plane and laying eyes on the island for the first time.
The first thing that struck me was the level of involvement. When we were met by the kids from your school that came and volunteered with such energy and enthusiasm, and the teachers that came as well, and seeing the activity level and wanting to do, and then going into the terminal and then seeing the people that were there, that were in such a state of desperation and hoping beyond hope that they are going to be able to get out and to be able to get to some place that they could be safe. And then on the flight back, I took a photograph of a little girl who was playing peekaboo with the people who sat behind her. And I was so thankful for the resilience of children. And then it crossed my mind, what was it like for a mom that we're now 8 weeks after the hurricane and she's just now able to know, to have a sense of peace of mind that her daughters are going to be safe, that everything is going to be okay. And it's an image that I will have with me for the rest of my life.
When you tell people back in Puerto Rico that you go to school in Pittsburgh, how often does the name Roberto Clemente come up?
Oh, Clemente is a huge hero for Puerto Ricans and for Pittsburghers. So that's probably one of the very few ways they know of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, there is a special connection, isn't there? And there probably always will be because of Roberto Clemente, what he meant to Pittsburgh, the fact that he was from Puerto Rico, the way that he died on a mission of mercy of his own. Do you find that that is being talked about when you show up with a plane full of supplies and you're prepared to evacuate people, get them to Florida for additional help?
Yes, so given the way he passed away, no one is too happy when someone mentions that on the flight. But it's very nerve-wracking for these people knowing that and knowing here they are doing the same thing. But a lot of them, many have not even left Puerto Rico. They're elderly, and they just found out 24, 48 hours ago that they're going to be able to leave. They're leaving their families behind, their jobs behind, their homes, everything, because their life depends on it.
Robert, is there as a newsman again, is there a moral flaw in how we cover tragedies like this? He seems to have moved on to the next thing, the next presidential tweet, the next Steeler game, the next whatever. Is there a moral flaw at the heart of how we do journalism?
I don't think it's about the journalism side. I think that our attention span is pretty short as a people, that we are looking at the next thing. We're looking at the next tweet, the next quick post, the next headline, and don't necessarily take the time to really dig into and try to understand what people are going through and the great complexities that come with disasters like what took place in Puerto Rico. I think it's more of a gut check of all of us as a people more than it is of journalism looking at where the next story happens to be.
All right, before we run out of time, I want to make sure we get out the information about your fundraising campaign. You're raising funds through a website called youcaring.com. If you go to that website and you search either your name, Bersana Guernica, or if you just search CMU, you'll pop up, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
What has the fundraising been like so far, and have things slowed down as inevitably attention moves on to other things?
So one of the things that made possible the first flight was Carnegie Mellon Heinz College that shared my campaign with their alumni network. And in a day, I raised $18,000, and I was able to make that flight 2 days later. That was October 4th. Yesterday, I received a total of $200. This flight, the last flight that I took, which is the same size flight I would like to take again to evacuate 140 patients, cost me $76,000. So I need all the help I can get, and fundraising has slowed down. People have moved on, like Robert said. they're on to the next crisis or the next story or thinking about their holiday shopping.
May I say this too?
Please.
That with Rosanna and all of her volunteers and team at CMU, there isn't a giant 501c3 that's backing this. There isn't a big philanthropist that's saying, oh, you know what, I've got you covered if you can't raise the money. Rosanna has decided that this matters so much to her to put her name on the line to be able to go and do this. So when people are watching today and they are thinking back and they go to the You Caring site and they read the story about the 4 trips, realizing this is an amazing feat of college students that saw a need and a desperate desire to do something to make a difference, and they're doing it on their own. And I think the people of Pittsburgh need to hear that they've been wonderful, because the dollars have come through in ever-increasing amounts in order to get through the 4th flight, but there's still need. And if you're able to, please do what you can to help.
Well said. And on that note, we will take a break and return with some final thoughts in just a moment.